Good morning and welcome to Cameron Steltman's Critical Incident for our EduC 5004 class. The date is June 30th, 2019. So here's what we will be working on today. I'm going to go through this incident as a before, after, and or before, during, and after. And then there are obviously resources. So what happened? What is my critical incident? Well, I had a lot of expectations going into a course. So my critical incident all comes down to a course I took as a graduate learner, and the reason I chose this event is because it really connected to my ideas of what I expected from myself as an AQ instructor. So an AQ instructor is someone who teaches teachers their additional qualifications course, kind of like grad studies, but not quite as intense. And so every time I'm taking one, I always want to see how can I learn how to be a better instructor for my participants when I do it. So I had some expectations beforehand, and this experience allows me to really reflect on what I'm doing as an instructor, but also as a learner. So my expectations before I started, I want to ask you all something. When you take your graduate class, what are your expectations of the readings? What do you expect from your professor? What do you expect from your technology and apps expected for use? And what do you expect for a time commitment in your course? So let's pause right now and have a quick discussion about that. Great discussion. So I would agree that there are some expectations of what you have when you go into a class, especially if you've already taken a few classes and they all follow similar, if not exactly the same processes. So for me, I expected some readings. I expected a professor who wants to support you, and I expected learning 2 new applications, and a reasonable time commitment, as was stated by the university, about 3 hours a week for that, and then 9 hours total with all the extra work you do. So these expectations are created on past courses, course write-ups, and description and university guidelines. So if you follow those, you do have expectations. So my next question then is, what do you do when a course meets none of your expectations? What do you do when your expectations are shaken to the core and you experience a disorienting event, as Mesereau describes? Well, this is where my reflection comes from, and where my critical event comes from, is my disorienting event took me far outside of my comfort zone. And I entered this class that I had taken with a very clear set of expectations of what learning should and would look like, and found that none of these were met. As I joined the class, the first few weeks were very, very confusing. So I had no idea what the expectations were. The applications and technology that we were expected to use was far beyond what had been done before. The readings, while there were a few, seemed to keep piling on, and then we're told that they were all completely optional. So it was hard to figure out which ones I was supposed to be reading. And I felt very, very disoriented. This all led me to believe that I had no idea what I was doing, and I was in a lot of trouble, until I read Mesereau. And then once I read Mesereau, I said, I think I've been breached. So I wanted to create an event or create a connection with the professor so I could say, hey, I am reading, I am learning, I am committed to this, even though it's very confusing. Have I been breached? So breaching is when an instructor takes themselves out of the role of information giver and thrusts the learner into an uncomfortable situation. So I said, I know what's happening here. I've been breached. I'm going to build a relationship with my instructor. I'm going to send an email and use some social presence, because we'd also been learning about social presence, which is that feeling of where you're comfortable and sharing. And so I sent an email and said, hey, have I been breached? And the professor sent back, my reading leads me to believe that this is something individuals do themselves, a psychological in-your-head distortion. It can be overcome. This to me felt crushing. I thought, oh no, there's no humor here. There's no I don't know what's going on. I am now, the professor also doesn't care about me. Very odd. So this is the impressions I had going into what became my critical incident.